Welcome to another episode of Brand Retro with Cyberdogs. Today we're going to be doing an interview with Kelsey Rasco from Dash and White. Dash and White is a retail destination in Fargo, North Dakota. She's currently building out her social media and e-commerce store as well. So she's got a fantastic story about just kind of the entrepreneur mindset, the journey of creating the brand, and just kind of some really great backstory on how she got to where she's at here in a very short amount of time. Hello, Kelsey. Welcome to Brand Retro Podcast. I already kind of set you up with an intro and talked a little bit about, how you are the founder and kind of the visionary behind Dash and White. So to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dash and White?
Yes, absolutely. I typically introduce my business as my home. This is a very carefully curated business that I have dreamt about since I was a little girl. And moving into my 20s, I just felt like I wasn't credible enough. I hadn't fallen down enough times. And now that I'm in my 30s, the timing was just perfect. So I wanted to bring a fresh look to Fargo Moorhead. I have a bigger thought. I want a bigger footprint than just Fargo Moorhead. So with that, I just wanted to make sure I created this business in the proper way. But I classify Dash and White as dining entertainment. I can certainly set any of my clients up with the full household, from kitchen to furniture to decor. But I really thought that was a little overdone, and I wanted to hyper focus with the footprint that I had here in Fargo with just dining entertainment pieces. So if you come in my store or shop me online, you're going to see that it's furniture of the mid-mod era. And then I have a lot of barware and glassware and fun additives for you to have people over.
Okay. One of the things I noticed you left out was the branding piece. You and I have worked together on various aspects of this, but one of the things that I think really stood out when you and I first met and you explained kind of this vision for Dash and White is that you were all in on the brand. Like you weren't one of these people who was like, hey, I just want this store and it's going to be so fun. You were more like, I want to create this brand and I want it to look like X, Y, and Z. And you just had it dialed in. So obviously I've been around the brand. I've seen your website. I've actually been in the store, which is fantastic. But tell me about kind of why you made branding such a priority and why, kind of why you led with that, because that was a huge part to not only get this thing going, but it was even a huge part as you pursued funding, correct?
Absolutely. And we should touch base back on funding because that is a really interesting journey. And I would love to coach people on how to kind of pitch that. But going back to the branding, so two things. I was in a really high-end career when I was really young. I was a custom picture framing manager and I worked in a high-end art gallery for over 12 years. And I constantly would get snubbed because I looked like a little puppy. And because I was so young and a lot of people didn't give me the credibility for the expertise that I actually had. So coming into Dash and White, I wanted to be taken so serious. I want to have a brand that speaks for me, that people think, gosh, is this a corporate or a franchise? And that's one of the best compliments I can get. So that's reason one. Reason two is I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm chugging the Kool-Aid. I fully believe if you can invest in your brand, which that's actually the first thing I invested in. And then I ran and got my product. And then I ran and got my design for my store. But the branding is the most important part to me. I'm actually kind of mentoring someone who is going through the same process of trying to brand her business. And it's nerve-wracking. It's financially consuming. You have to decide, am I going to skip a corner on the face of my business or am I going to go all in? She's pretty nervous about going all in. And all I have to say is you either jump or you don't. And I jumped. And to me, it has made waves just because of branding.
Yeah. I remember back to one of the conversations that you and I had is that we were talking about the funding piece, and you go into these banks or, small business centers or whatever it is. And no offense to those people, but you're talking to numbers people. You're talking to people who, they're interviewing and having these meetings all day, every day, and it's a pass or a fail kind of a either you qualify or don't kind of a mindset. So their ability to sit back and envision and be creative and try to pick up what you're laying down is, you're just asking a lot of them to see that in a some kind of a presentation and or business plan. So I'm remembering back to the conversation that you and I had is, you got to paint that picture for them. And I remember when you and I sat down and built out kind of a brand business brief, kind of a document where we literally went out and found photos. We found elements to kind of mock up your brand so that no matter what, who was on the other side of that table, like we wrote it out in crayon for them, like they could see what the vision was and what that was going to look like. Yeah, I think you made the right choice, but I also think that anybody who's going down this road, I mean, obviously, yeah, we all have to be smart with our budgets and whatnot, but anybody who's going down this road needs to think about those gaps of the people that they're talking to and whether or not they're truly going to understand what it is you're trying to do. And if they can't, you got to figure out how to paint that picture for them.
Right. And coming in, and it's the same, and maybe it's me with a lot of coaching from you and from, other people who've had experiences, and people who weren't even coaching me, who were telling me their experience. I was listening to how their conversations went. I was listening to the denial that they got. And so as you are to walk in my store, I'm going to greet you and see who you are. I am not going to hard sell you. I'm not going to, oh, come look over here. I have buy one, get one 50% off. I want to see what you're doing today. Are you on a girls shopping trip, or did you have lunch cocktails? I just want to find out who you are. And so I went into these, I actually interviewed several different bankers, and I went into these interviews, and it was just a normal conversation, and it was energetic and fun. And you're right. These people they're numbers people, and they see people in their office all the time wanting money for X, Y, and Z. So first off, I started the conversation just friendly, bubbly, charismatic. But Mike, I have to tell you, the brand brief was the scariest commitment that I financially made coming out of the gate. And it's also, there's a couple people who were close to me at the time who told me that was the biggest waste of money. And I got nervous. And you know what? I have to say, screw them, because it was not the biggest waste of money. That brand brief set the tone. It helped me acquire massive funding to start this dream. It helped me secure accounts for some of my vendors. It helped me secure signage. It helped me secure my lease, because these business people who are all working along in this world that, because it's not just one entity. I have my, the people who own the property. I have my business banker, then I have my SBA. These people, they need to see and check mark that I have my business plan, right? Yeah. But they actually don't give up my business plan. What they actually care is the quick and dirty, which is a brand guide. And that I just sent off, and it was just all there. I didn't need to pitch it. It pitched itself because it looks so professional and so beautiful. It's kind of tough. It was a really big financial commitment for me at that time. And I'm so happy I made the jump.
Yeah. What I see a lot with, those who have taken that leap, especially in those early stages where they're trying to secure funding and whatnot, is it also gives you confidence walking in that room. Like, even though you don't exactly know how this thing's going to play out, when you walk in there with that document that automatically makes you over prepared for that conversation, it just brings confidence to it. And, make no mistake about it, those people who are, either approving or not approving that loan, they're reading your body language. They're looking for confidence. They're trying to figure out if you've got what it takes to do it. So to walk in there over prepared is huge. And for those, just to put a little context to it, what I call a brand brief, or what I've done for clients like Kelsey, is that it's basically like, you take the business plan, you translate it down to common terms and layman terms, and you just spell out the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the vision, the kind of the fluffy side of what you're trying to do. And then you fully brand it with logo, with text, with, like, you start really defining how your brand's going to look and feel within that document, so that when you're not only presenting it, but you're emailing it to somebody or using it as a leave behind, it's all there. Like, the whole vision is living and breathing and starting to come alive. So there's no questions later when, the loan officer or whoever it is that you're dealing with tries to go explain it to somebody else. He doesn't have to struggle so hard, or you don't have to put all your eggs in his basket hoping he understood, because now you've left that document where it really takes the error out of it. It makes it a lot smoother, makes it way easier for the people making those decisions to understand where all this is going.
And you said it as well. It's almost like a confidence booster. Yeah, they're just going through the thing. Well, do you have a business plan? I mean, they're like bored out of their gourd because they're expecting me not to be ready to go. Yeah, I will actually send that to you in a PDF. But here, most importantly, here's my brand brief. Just quick go through that, and that just sets the tone. And it's just a no-brain read. It's like, whoa. And that's when you can dial in. And, there's a couple statistics, there's some juice in there, and then you can dial in and go, okay, perfect. Let's actually go to your business plan. I mean, business plans are big and juicy, and I think mine is like 60 some pages. The brand guide is absolutely what stole the show.
Yeah. Do you think that throwing them that curveball almost made it stand out more because it's not something they're used to seeing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It makes me wonder, not only did it help me acquire funding and vendors, I mean, I seriously, I can't, I can't chug the Kool-Aid even more. I just want to share it with everyone. There's vendors out there that will not allow you to buy wholesale from them in a retail sense, because you have no credibility. You don't have any time in business. You don't have any other vendors that are willing to vouch for you. So this brand guide just had a massive ripple effect. And then coming back, I mean, we can talk ripple effect all day, but what it also did was it kept me in line with my vision, because there's times, like I said, when I'm hearing some other people that might not be part of my tribe on my good energy bus.
Yeah.
It helped keep me where I wanted to be. It helped launch me forward. I always tell everyone on my social media, always move with forward progress, and that brand guide helped me do that.
So you spoke on it a little bit, and I won't go totally off track with it, but one of the things in the early process of this, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts to clients and whatnot, but when you're starting that brand journey, it's awesome to listen to other people. It's smart to get advice. Like, you should have your ears open and be listening to what other people are saying. However, until you get your vision defined and you get it built, you have to filter all that incoming information to make sure it's not knocking you off track, that it's not confusing the whole process, and it's not making it more difficult than it needs to be. So I remember, like, when we were going through the process, one of the big things, and I can't remember exactly how I said it, but I said to keep your circle small. Like, I'm not saying don't talk to people, but keep your circle small, because you have to define this to the point where it's yours, so you can control it and create that vision going forward.
Absolutely. Humans need a sounding board, and you have to be very careful about who you pick for your sounding board. I even have a really great friend of mine who was was on my little tiny team. And her and her husband would repeat constantly, like, Kelsey, we would never take a risk like this. We support you. We know this is going to be wonderful, but like, holy smokes, this is great. So they were very forward and authentic in their responses, but they still give me some great feedback. But they let me know that this is not something in their wheelhouse. This is not something in their comfort level, but they'll help when they can. And that was kind of going through logos and how to set this up. And so I actually thanked them, but I kind of stepped back a little bit. And it wasn't anything negative, but they let me know that this is a huge undertaking, and they were pretty freaked out. So that just made my circle just a little bit smaller, which is totally fine.
Yeah. Well, it's a big risk. And when you jump on something like this and you're creating a business, a brand, whatnot, again, it's not that you're not friends with them or whatever, but you do have to put a little distance between yourself and those who maybe don't have the same mindset, because they'll slow you down, they'll drag you down, and they'll plant the seed of doubt, which you can't have. So on the topic of branding, tell me a little bit about the journey, because guys, if listeners, whoever, if you guys go check out Dash and White, it's going to look like Kelsey said, it's going to look like a franchise. It's going to look like a business that has been up and running for decades. It's new. It looks awesome. And one of the things Kelsey has done in a very short amount of time is she's created a brand look and feel that it just exudes quality, and it exudes like timelessness. Like, people really, like you've mentioned before, people come in and they think you're a national franchise. That's a huge compliment. So tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, and it kind of goes back to me saying in my 20s and, younger, I wasn't really held credible. And now I'm like ready to rock. I just, you just hit the nail on the head. I want people to come in and feel confidence in shopping. I just, sometimes when boutiques open and they're locally owned, their branding, which includes their store footprint and their shelving and their cash wrap, it's all kind of secondhand or cheaply purchased or whatnot. It kind of looks like a local shop. I took the massive risk of including some of that. They call it a fit up in my SBA loan, and I got shelving. I was very adamant that I wouldn't be having secondhand shelving here. I saved cost. I put aside costs. I didn't save anything. I put aside costs to have this grand cash wrap. And in that holds this this meaty cash wrap. It's not some little cabinet that I had repurposed. And I'm not making fun of anyone. I took out a big SBA loan, and there's other people who didn't, and they are doing fantastic. Let's see. What brand you talk about branding and classiness, and I look like a franchise. The thing that absolutely kills me almost every single day is I look at my bags. And for anyone who has questions on packaging, I just go big or go home. And I couldn't go big on my packaging. That's a huge expense, and I spare no tissue paper when it comes to packaging something. But the branding on the bags, and Mike, from the moment we met, I said I want these bags to be so beautiful that you're nervous to throw this away. Like I want you to store it up in your closet because you don't know what to do with it. It's so pretty. Maybe next year I'll get there.
Yeah, it's I remember you talking about that, and I think at the time we had kind of talked about kind of some of the things I've had to dial back on too, and it's a pick your battles kind of a thing, because the fact that you already have it defined in your brain as to what you're working towards, that's the most important part. And there's nothing wrong with your bags. They just fall short for you because they're not what you envisioned. But you'll get there. And I think it's part of the process. You kind of have to pick your battles in the whole branding world and how much you're going to bring in regards to signage, swag, whether it's, the bags, the cash wrap, whatever, but you kind of prioritize what matters to you and what you're going to be able to work from. So like the cash wrap, to me, when you chose that, it totally makes sense because that's your podium. You're right behind that thing. That's where you're working from. It's perfect. So.
And another thing, and it's all give and take. You have your budget. This is all set out, and you have to figure out where you're going to put your money and where you feel it's most important. Yes, I want thick, shiny black bags with this like rope handle that is so stiff you have to like shove your fist in it to get it to pop out. Yes, I want that, but you're right. I wanted a grand cash wrap first and foremost. And thank goodness, because COVID-19 says you have to be 6 feet apart. My cash wrap just does that for me. But I also took some of that bag cost and I put it into my outside sign, because without appeal, no one's going to even have a bag anyway. So my sign was really important to me. And I've had a couple people inquire about it, kind of like, what did you do? How much was it? Well, you know what? My sign is actually black during the day, and at night it shines bright white. It's the coolest thing that I could have done to the outside of this building to lure people in. And when you're driving at night, it's like, oh, I mean, it's the coolest trick. I love it. I'll pay for it for 10 years through an SBA loan, but I love it.
Yeah, it looks awesome. So take me back to the time when you were actually getting the brand created. I want to hear a little bit about the journey of kind of what your mindset was as we were creating the brand, but also if you could go back and do it again, what would you do different?
Right now in this moment, Mike, I don't think I would do a damn thing different. It was, and with you sent me a really great questionnaire, slightly intense, because I wasn't expecting you to ask me if my business was a car, what car would it be? I was like, what is this guy? Like, what? And now I'm like, Mini Cooper. My business would be a Mini Cooper. It would be that cool little zippy black car that's like zipping through traffic. It would be a Mini Cooper. I enjoyed that process. It helped me really filter through. It's so much bigger than like finding your initial brand, because my initial brand is 100% me and nothing else. And with that, you have social media branding. And that's something that's very interesting to me. I have been 100% me on social media as well. And something's happening. Some magic is happening that I am not quite sure what or how, but my Instagram and my Facebook platforms are growing by the day. I'm not even doing much for promoting or ads. It's growing organically. And I think back to all the steps that were taken. All I can think is, it was the branding conversation, the branding interview that we did, the brand guide, and going into what my store will look like. And now it's just brand. It's just this long, beautiful process. And the branding goes right into social media too. This isn't just, and now here I am blabbering. This isn't just an initial conversation. You get your brand, you get your voice, boom, you're off to the races. Absolutely not. This whole moment has followed me all the way through. I'm in month 8 of my infancy in my business. Branding is even more important today than it probably was when I opened. I mean, it's an ongoing thing that's the most important thing. And the person I'm mentoring, I keep trying to tell her, like, your brand is going to set the tone for your business. Now, if you go 50% on your brand, you're only going 50% on your business. So why, and I don't want to say waste because I need to be gentle, but why waste all your effort and your money on product or creating or whatever you're doing with your business and then not launch it into success?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that unfortunately we look at who we look at, we're kind of monkey see, monkey do type mentality because we think that that's safe. So if I aspire to be like these guys, it's working for them. I should be able to just step in that model, kind of make my little tweaks, make my little differences. But at the same time, I should be able to just recreate that. Then I'll get unique, or then I'll get authentic from there. And it's like, well, you don't necessarily have to start that way. If you start with the authenticity and you start with something that's unique to you and create something that's just proprietary, not only is it hard to rip off, but it's hard to screw up because it's ingrained in you and you're living and breathing it every day. I not only speak to it with my own brand, but I tell all my customers, there's always got to be a part of the brand that is you. Authenticity and tying that back to your personal life, and all of that is the recipe that makes this beautiful soup that's branding. And you're probably, in the last couple of years, you're probably the best example I have of somebody who took it so literally and beyond, that like your social media, what you're doing on your Facebook lives, anything that you're doing is so Kelsey that if they like you and if they like the brand, they don't have to overthink the connection because it's just right in front of them constantly. So how that all works and why that makes your social media grow, I don't know, but that's why. I mean, that's what they're seeing, and it takes time, but you've been diligent, you've been committed, and that's what you're seeing. You're just starting to see that snowball rolling downhill, and it's going to pick up steam, and it's going to keep going and going and going. And because these people are Kelsey lovers, they're also Dash and White lovers, they're brand lovers. So that's the coolest part about how far you've taken this, because it's highly unique, and we won't name names, but we can look around at different boutiques and different businesses that, they might be successful too, but they don't have what you have.
Well, and it's interesting, two little things here. Back when my social media was a little bit more new, my husband, he likes and shares almost everything. He was wondering where I get my captions from. And I was kind of offended. And I asked him, what? He's like, well, where do you get your captions from? I'm like, I write them. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, can't you like hear my voice in them? He's like, well, I can. They're so funny. I just thought you were like ripping them off a website or something. I was like, no, that's me. But then I also had an Instagram influencer last week who purchased some things, and then she went on to her Instagram story and did an unboxing. And I got the best compliment. I was so like on cloud nine. She said, stopping at Dash and White, Kelsey is so wonderful. She's exactly who you think she would be from her Instagram. I am so proud of that. And it's so weird for me to talk about myself because it's like, I worked really closely for an employer during my career and out on the West Coast. And her hashtag was actually authentic, and being authentic. And she was the farthest thing from. And she thought that branding herself and her sorrows and her family would help gain this massive audience and help her brand. And it was actually quite a detriment because it was so produced and not authentic. And when I'm telling people, hey, if that's in your brand wheelhouse, then be authentic. But I'm also not sharing videos of me at my house on my business page. There's a difference between being authentic and sharing your entire life. I mean, there's a balance if you choose to have it. And Mike, it's funny because if you remember in the beginning, said that I don't want to show my face and I don't want to share my family. And right from the beginning, things changed immediately because my entire family was here helping me with the demo. My kids were in hard hats and running around with tape measures, and instantly from the beginning that pivoted, and I reassessed how I was going to move forward with the branding.
Yeah. But I think that your understanding of the line, what's too far, what's not enough, I think that enables you to kind of bring the personal in it, to bring Kelsey into it, to bring even your family into it if needed, because you've got the awareness of how it fits in the brand and how it doesn't. Where I see a lot of people just, they just jump to almost like this branding 101 type mindset, and they try to copy what other people are doing, or they try to bring in elements that aren't authentic to them. And it doesn't make any of that wrong. It just makes it a swing and a miss, because the more tied to it and the more authentic it is truly to you as a person and to your vision for the brand, you're gonna hit more home runs. You just will. And that's what people don't understand. And I know it's not easy if you're not in this world, but that's kind of the journey. That's what they have to figure out as they're doing this, so they don't get off track.
And they have to figure this out, Mike. They really do. My recipe is not going to be their recipe. I love branding from before I had even met you. I knew it was important. But I always kind of had eyes on some businesses in town because I look up to them. And then when I opened and then I started my branding on social media, I actually saw changes in other people's social media, the spacing, the characters that were used. And this is in a couple different businesses. So it was really, I'm like, oh my gosh, are they changing what they're doing? Because I'm getting some traction. There's also a business that is, I love this business and I'm not going to name it, but they actually swore a couple times in their captions. And I was like, what? And to me, that works. I do swear, and I have some swear words on mugs and notepads and stuff here in the store. It's classy with a little vulgar, with a little sass. It works for me. That's my brand. So just because that's my brand and it's tracking on social media doesn't mean it's your brand.
Yeah.
So I can say be authentic, have your face in your business. It doesn't work for some people. So you have to, and let's go all the way back, Mike, you have to create your own brand guide. And you have to decide all these factors and of course leave room for pivoting, because once again, I didn't want my face in anything and I pivoted immediately. But each person is going to be different. And this just happens to be my story.
Yeah. Let's talk about the identity piece just for 1 second, because this is actually the second time this has come up in a podcast. And I'll be the first to say that when I started Cyber Dogs, or even Dog Days Apparel, me being the face of anything was the furthest thing from my mind. And in many cases, I had rejected it because I didn't want that. I wanted my brand to be larger than life, bigger than me. I just didn't want to stifle it by trying to make myself the face of it, or trying to, and to be honest, I don't really care about the kudos. I don't care about the accolades of it, but I just didn't want to position myself or start off that way. But over the course of time, there are just times where you have to champion your brand. You have to. There's no way around it. And somebody has to be the spokesperson. Somebody has to step up and say, here's what it is, here's why it is, and here's why we're doing it this way, especially if you're trying to be disruptive to the industry and you're trying to do something that's unique. So back to you, tell me a little bit about that and kind of when you got to the point where you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah. I really didn't want to do it because I set the foundation for a potential franchise. I set the foundation to have a bigger footprint. I set the foundation to blow out of Fargo Moorhead, right? And to do that, I really shouldn't tie my face to it, right? If you want to grow in a more corporate sense. And that was my whole thing. That's what I told you. That's what I told other people. I just don't want to be involved. And as soon as boots hit the ground, it was like people loved hearing me, which, okay, by the way, I sound so dumb saying that, but I get messages like, oh my gosh, I love your lives. Keep doing them. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I quickly pivoted. Now my face is a forefront. I typically don't put my face on my social media. Once in a while, I'll do an introduction for the new followers. So I feel like in that sense, it will be easy to pivot. But you're right, Mike. There is going to be a time when I'm ready to grow that I will have to somehow calculate it and carefully not step back, but not be as Kelsey in Dash and White. Let Dash and White be Dash and White. And that's going to be new waters for me to navigate. And I don't know how I'll do that, but I'm hoping it will come gracefully. And I hope I do get the chance to have another storefront somewhere.
Yeah, and I think you will. I think I think the process of you dialing back your personal presence in it is going to come naturally as you continue to define kind of the look, the feel, the voice, because everything you're doing on social media, whether it's, sneaking a swear word in there or whatever it is you're doing, like that's all laying down groundwork for your brand voice. So sooner or later, you're going to have enough foundation. You're going to be able to package that, put those elements of the brand in some kind of a document and formalize it. And at that point, you're going to be able to go forward with that next location or that next ambassador to say, here's how I got here. Here's what we do. Not that it'll always evolve. But I think what you've been doing in the last 8-9 months is you've just been, I don't want to say learning as you go, but you've been slowly defining and creating layers to your brand.
Oh, I've been learning as I go. There's moments where like, oh, should I have said that? I'm sure I have said a couple times that I would sell my kids for some of this furniture or for like a line of smeg, like, oh, sell my kids. Who needs those? Of course I love them, but it's just, once again, being real, being authentic. There's a ton of parents out there who are like, heck yes, I will sell my kids for a nice house too. Of course, they're not going to sell their children. But it's just kind of being a little bit funny and breaking from the redundancy of old customer service tactics. I was just on another interview last week and we kind of brought that up about consumers are just so tired of the typical tactics, the textbook branding, this you need to do the ABCs on social media to get followers. And please, I am the first person to tell you that I do not believe in reinventing the wheel, but just choose your path wisely. Maybe branding isn't in your wheelhouse and you're doing the ABCs. That's when I think it's really important to find someone like you, Mike, to help with something like this. And I didn't know the foundations of branding. And that's why I reached out to you, because I could not do this myself.
Well, you've been killing it for 8-9 months now. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. So with that, tell us a little bit more about where they can learn about Dash and White. What social medias are you on? I'm almost positive anybody who listens to this is probably going to check you out. So where can they find you?
Well, first and foremost, my brick and mortar location is South 45th Street in Fargo. I'm right behind Leela and Lavender, and my business actually faces a cutting edge. And I always make a joke to Jeff, the owner, at a cutting edge, because he has such an intense security system that I didn't pick a more safer spot to have a store. I could probably throw a pebble and hit his window and it will set the whole neighborhood off. So anyway, that's where I'm at, South 45th, near the intersection of 32nd and 45th at Blue Water Creek family. And then, of course, I have Facebook and Instagram, Dash and White. And I'm so new. Oh my gosh. If you, Mike, are like, well, what's your Pinterest? I don't have Pinterest. I'm still growing. My website is probably 2 weeks behind. It's all just a learning curve and kind of picking up as I go.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate the journey and everything you shared with us. It's awesome. So
thank you, Mike. Thank you.
And yeah, just one last time, if you are looking to check out Dash and White, find their website at dashandwhite.com and also their social media channels. Before we go, we always do a shout out to some of our favorite brands. So shout out to our friends at Gerbeau Jeans. Whether it was the tag we were looking at or not, you gave us all an honest excuse to look. Much appreciated. And if you're looking for information on branding, how to connect with me personally, check us out at Cyberdogs